Let's get right into it. Number 7, the government's mind control experiments. For decades, people whispered about secret government programs that used unwitting Americans as test subjects for mind control drugs. Sounds like something straight out of a science fiction movie, right? The idea that the CIA was dosing random citizens with LSD and conducting bizarre psychological experiments seemed too outrageous to believe. Critics called it paranoid delusion. Government officials flatly denied such programs existed, but in the 1970s, congressional investigations revealed the horrifying truth. MKUltra was real, and it was worse than anyone imagined. Starting in the 1950s, the CIA operated a massive program designed to find ways to control human minds. They administered LSD to mental patients for months at a time. They dosed prisoners, prostitutes, and drug addicts without their knowledge or consent. One mental patient in Kentucky was given LSD for 174 straight days. The agency spent millions of dollars funding experiments at universities and research centers across the country. The program's goal was to create techniques that could extract confessions or completely wipe someone's memory clean. They wanted to turn people into robot agents. CIA scientists experimented with electroshock therapy, high doses of psychedelic drugs, and psychological torture. Over 30 institutions and universities participated in these experiments on unknowing citizens from all walks of life. The only reason we know about MKUltra today is because CIA Director Richard Helms tried to destroy all the evidence in 1973, but some documents survived, and they revealed one of the most disturbing government conspiracies in American history. If you're enjoying learning about these proven conspiracies, make sure to subscribe because we're just getting started. Number 6, the FBI's war on civil rights leaders. In the 1960s, civil rights activists and anti-war protesters often claimed they were being watched, harassed, and infiltrated by federal agents. The FBI dismissed these allegations as paranoid fantasies. Government officials assured the public that law enforcement agencies weren't spying on American citizens exercising their constitutional rights. The truth was far more sinister. COINTELPRO, short for Counterintelligence Program, was a massive FBI operation that ran from 1956 to 1971. The program specifically targeted civil rights leaders, anti-war activists, feminist organizations, and anyone the FBI considered subversive. They weren't just watching these groups, they were actively trying to destroy them. Martin Luther King Jr. became a primary target after his famous March on Washington speech. FBI Director J. Edgar Hoover called him the most dangerous man in America. Agents bugged King's hotel rooms, tapped his phones, and tried to blackmail him into committing suicide. They sent him anonymous letters designed to destroy his marriage and reputation. The FBI infiltrated civil rights organizations with provocateurs who tried to incite violence and create internal conflicts. The scope was staggering. By 1976, the FBI maintained over 500,000 domestic intelligence files on American citizens. They weren't investigating crimes, they were manufacturing reasons to destroy people who challenged the status quo. The program only came to light in 1971 when activists broke into an FBI office in Pennsylvania and stole classified documents. Those stolen files exposed decades of illegal surveillance and harassment of American citizens by their own government. Number 5. Operation False Flag Planning. During the Cold War, people occasionally suggested that the U.S. military might stage fake attacks to justify wars. Most Americans found this idea unthinkable. The notion that Pentagon officials would plan to kill American citizens and blame foreign enemies seemed like the ravings of conspiracy theorists. Then, in 1997, declassified documents revealed Operation Northwoods. In 1962, the Joint Chiefs of Staff unanimously approved a plan to conduct false flag terrorist attacks on American soil. The proposal included hijacking civilian aircraft, bombing American cities, sinking U.S. Navy ships, and assassinating Cuban immigrants. They wanted to kill American civilians and blame Cuba to justify an invasion. The document spelled out specific attack scenarios designed to create public outrage. Military leaders wrote about blowing up a U.S. ship at Guantanamo Bay, stating that casualty lists in American newspapers would cause a helpful wave of national indignation. They planned to shoot down hijacked American planes and orchestrate terrorism in Washington, D.C. and Miami. The head of every branch of the U.S. Armed Forces gave written approval for these attacks on their own citizens. The plan was only stopped because President Kennedy refused to authorize it. For 35 years, this remained classified. Anyone suggesting the military would plan attacks on Americans was dismissed as a conspiracy theorist. The declassified documents proved they were absolutely right. Number 4, Big Tobacco's deadly deception. For decades, tobacco companies insisted their products were safe despite mounting scientific evidence linking cigarettes to cancer and other diseases. People who suggested tobacco companies knew cigarettes were deadly but were covering it up were labeled conspiracy theorists. The industry spent millions on PR campaigns claiming there was no proven link between smoking and health problems. They funded fake scientific studies and attacked researchers who found evidence of harm. In 1994, 7 tobacco company CEOs sat before Congress, raised their right hands, and swore under oath that nicotine wasn't addictive. They claimed their products posed no serious health risks. Behind closed doors, it was a completely different story. Internal company documents revealed they'd known for decades that cigarettes cause cancer, heart disease, and addiction. They had their own scientists conducting research that proved cigarettes were deadly. But instead of warning the public, they buried the evidence. They launched massive disinformation campaigns designed to cast doubt on legitimate health research. They paid scientists to produce studies that contradicted the real evidence. The tobacco industry spent billions creating fake controversy around established science. In 2006, a federal court ruled that major cigarette companies were guilty of conspiracy. They had systematically deceived the public and regulators about the dangers of their products for over 50 years. What once seemed like paranoid speculation turned out to be a massive corporate cover-up that cost millions of lives. Number 3, mass surveillance of American citizens. Before 2013, suggesting the government was secretly collecting phone calls, emails, and internet data from ordinary Americans was considered paranoid conspiracy thinking. Intelligence officials repeatedly assured Congress and the public that no such programs existed. When directly asked, they flat out lied. Then Edward Snowden leaked classified NSA documents that exposed the truth. The government wasn't just collecting some data from suspected terrorists. They were vacuuming up massive amounts of information from American citizens who had done nothing wrong. The NSA was recording phone calls, reading emails, and tracking internet activity on an industrial scale. Programs like PRISM gave intelligence agencies direct access to data from major tech companies. The NSA was collecting bulk telephone metadata from millions of Americans every single day. They built sophisticated systems to monitor social media, map personal relationships, and track people's movements. Courts later ruled many of these surveillance programs were illegal and unconstitutional. Intelligence Chief James Clapper had told Congress the NSA was not collecting data on Americans. That statement was proven completely false by the leaked documents. What critics had called a surveillance state conspiracy theory turned out to be a massive understatement. The actual programs were far more extensive than even the most paranoid skeptics had imagined. Number 2, institutional child abuse cover-up. For decades, isolated reports suggested Catholic Church leaders were systematically hiding child sexual abuse by priests. These allegations were often dismissed as anti-religious attacks or exaggerated claims by disgruntled former members. Church officials denied any organized cover-up existed. The reality was far worse than anyone suspected. Church hierarchy had been quietly shuffling accused priests between parishes for decades to avoid scandal. They silenced victims with legal agreements and financial settlements. They destroyed evidence and intimidated witnesses. This wasn't just a few bad actors. It was a coordinated conspiracy that reached the highest levels of church leadership. A Pennsylvania grand jury investigation in 2018 documented over 1,000 cases of child abuse by more than 300 priests. The report concluded that senior church officials knew about the abuse and actively covered it up. Similar investigations in other states and countries revealed the same pattern of systematic concealment. The conspiracy spanned multiple decades and affected thousands of victims worldwide. What many had dismissed as isolated incidents or anti-Catholic propaganda turned out to be one of the largest institutional cover-ups in modern history. The church's own documents prove they had prioritized protecting their reputation over protecting children from predators. Number 1. Climate change cover-up by oil companies. Environmental activists long claimed that major oil companies had data proving fossil fuels caused global warming, but were hiding this information from the public. Industry officials dismissed these allegations as environmental extremism. They insisted there was still scientific uncertainty about climate change. Internal company documents later proved the activists were absolutely right. Exxon's own scientists had conducted research in the 1970s that accurately predicted global warming from fossil fuel emissions. Instead of sharing this information, the company buried the research and launched a massive disinformation campaign. They funded climate denial organizations and paid scientists to cast doubt on established climate science. Other major oil companies followed similar strategies. They knew their products were causing dangerous climate change decades before the public became aware of the threat. But instead of warning people or investing in clean energy, they chose to protect their profits by spreading confusion and doubt. They spent millions funding fake research and propaganda designed to delay action on climate change. This corporate conspiracy to mislead the public about climate change is now supported by peer-reviewed studies and the company's own internal documents. What environmental advocates called a cover-up turned out to be exactly that. The conspiracy theorists were right, and their vindication came with a price measured in decades of delayed climate action. These proven conspiracies remind us that powerful institutions sometimes do engage in the exact kind of secretive, harmful activities that skeptics warn about. While most conspiracy theories remain unproven, these cases show that healthy skepticism about official narratives can sometimes be completely justified. That's all for today. I'll be making similar videos in the future. Subscribe to see them.